members, community members, those individuals watching tonight, really excited about this year for a few different reasons. Number one, we really want to get back to the way things used to be, not just for our personal lives, but also educationally. As a family here, as a community of learners, our motto or our mantra has always been turning learners into leaders, and we think we need to do that by getting everyone back. So, through the vaccines, through everything that we've done here as a board, as a district, we know that we're ready so that when Governor Murphy, who I'm sure is watching me tonight, when Governor Murphy turns the switch on and he says, Rich, let's get these kids back in, we're ready to go. So we are confident in working with central administration and the board through board committees that this budget presentation tonight is obviously a little different than the numbers that you may have had at our budget workshop. We were scrubbing that data for the last several weeks. And we have some nice information in here, and then a little treat for you all at the end, so which will be very interesting. Can we drop the lights a little more, maybe, do you think? Just 'cause we're actually getting new lighting in here over the next couple of days, so we're very excited about that too, because we have some pockets of darkness. So yeah, I'd also like to mention Mr. Palladino. This is the first time ever in a budget presentation that I've actually had a BA on the slide. So I do have to say that he has done an incredible job here. He's actually grown up a lot in administration as he's been in Belleville. So we really do appreciate his input too, and I think the board has definitely welcomed him to the family as well. All right, Mr. Parapato. So again, not too many pretty things, right? I mean, it's a budget presentation, so again, it's a little antiseptic. It doesn't matter how many bells and whistles you have. It doesn't make your test scores go up, right? We know that. So again, it's what's in the presentation, right? So let's pay attention to what's in the presentation. So we have our district goals, and the board is meeting in, we'll be meeting in the retreat to talk about strategic planning soon. So hopefully some of these goals will be a little bit more ironed out by that point. Enrollment assumptions again, school level goals, special education, technology, facilities, revenue projections, which are always fun. What are we going to be appropriating next year? All right. My favorite slide, below adequacy spending, we'll explain that again as we do every year, because there are certain individuals that don't believe in this, but we're going to, again, talk about it because it's important to Belleville. Administrative costs, and of course, the favorite slide of all, the tax impact, right? How's it going to impact my pocket? What's going to happen? Next slide, Jeff. So again, I'm sorry that it's a little high there. We have a lot of things impacting education next year. So the main goal for next year right now is to reopen the schools. We really don't know what that looks like. We can hypothesize, we can guess, we could think about it, we could listen to what the governor's saying, right? He's getting his information, but again, we don't know what's going to happen over the summer, et cetera. However, right now, we are preparing for a full reopening. Just full reopening, come back in. That's what we're preparing for. We could always tailor it back and attenuate it, right? Governor Murphy made the comment there will be no remote learning next year. He did make that comment. I don't know if that's going to stick. We're going to find out. But right now, we are preparing for everybody to come back and tailor it back if we can. We want to continue to fund the employment contractual obligations. That's a high percentage of any budget in any district, in any state in the country. Okay, contractual agreements. We're tied into those. And it's the highest percentage of any budget. District personnel needs, every year we look at Achieve NJ, projected enrollment trends, state statutes, certifications, et cetera, et cetera. The administrative alignment of the district, as you see, we made some shifts again for mandated programs or programs that we need in district. Also, don't forget, every teacher, every time we add teachers, we need to add evaluations and observations. Only administrators can do that. Okay, so again, that kind of dictates how many administrators you have in a district. I know nobody wants to hear that because administration is management and it's more money, et cetera, but these are under and unfunded mandates. That's for Achieve NJ. Continue to grow the district's curricular and academic programs. We want to advance the academies. We had 2 academies lined up, right, that were stalled because of COVID. We want to bring those back. On the agenda tonight, we're talking about the Police and Fire Academy, which we had in the works pre-COVID as well. So we're looking at that too. So all of these things are things that we're hoping to bring back to 2021-2022 school year. The process is going to be obviously step by step, but we need to be prepared for it. Further advanced technology, obviously, technology has to be upgraded every once in a while. Things expand. There's new programs, the robotics programs, things of that nature. And option two programs are very important now. They've been around for a very long time, but these are actual programs that we create that students can utilize to get Carnegie credits for, or elective credits, based on curriculums that we write for specialty areas. All right, so we're looking at possibly aeronautics program and things of that nature moving into this year. So as our students enter our buildings again, with all of this that they've missed because of COVID-19, right, we're ready to give them the full complement of everything that we wanted to, plus more, and that's what we're prepared to do. We need to continue to set aside capital reserve funds because we're still at the process of finishing referendum construction. We have a few projects left, and because of COVID-19, we are definitely expanded some of our outdoor spaces. We have in the works a pavilion area outside the high school. We're doing some other things at some of the other schools. So again, capital reserve funds are needed for some of this. The pavilion area outside is going to allow us to expand the lunch program as a meeting area, and we definitely have enough room out there. Also, the Belleville Bridge program, which we've talked about a few times already, which is going to be open for all the summer program. It's going to be a summer program for our elementary students. We also are going to have a middle school program, and we think we may have a high school program as well to try to combat the learning loss. We call it a bridge program because what we're doing is we're going to remediate exit skills and introduce entrance skills, okay? So we're going to bridge the 2 years. We're not just going to say, here, let's just do all the stuff you missed. No, we're going to remediate exit skills, meaning that every year when a student leaves grade 3, for example, they should have this set of exit skills, okay? We're going to remediate those skills while we are introducing the new skills for the next year. So it's the bridge program. So it's going to be a great thing. Everybody's talking about summer programs. So we're talking about middle school and high school programs. Middle school has always had it. Summer school and high school used to exist. We do have the Adult Learning Academy still that we're trying to work out a little bit more and bucks. But all these goals will continue to happen. And then, of course, the bottom one, which is kind of in the shadows right now, which is one of our most important, there's two more. One of our most important goals is to continue to grow the preschool universe, right? Our goal, we think we have the ability, and we're going to be bringing to the board pretty soon, the possibility of going to 93% preschool universe. That means 93% of our kids that are preschool age will be able to get in the classrooms. That's going to be on the board to make a decision pretty soon, hopefully. We have the ability to budget for that. And also district-wide sustainability goals, going as green as we can, solar areas, greenhouses, all these things that nobody thought can ever happen in this town, but are happening in towns all over the state for their students. All right, we're finally doing here. So again, we're very proud of the goals we've set forth. We know that this is a very solid budget to handle this, and especially as we open the doors again. Here's our enrollment numbers: 738 the middle school, high school numbers 1360. These are based on the AASA numbers, which means that if you took the enrollment today, it might be a little different. But all of our funding, all of our funds for budget are based on one date. It's usually the October 15th date. Sometimes it changes because of the weekends or whatever. So that's our middle school, high school enrollment. Preschool education, this is a new part of the budget process now, right? 62 students are at Hornblower, 27 at Sandy Lane. So we have a few classrooms at Sandy Lane, or maybe one room at Sandy Lane. So we're actually running part of our preschool program out of that facility. Right now we have 268 total preschool students in all the buildings, okay, which represents only 39% of eligible preschool age students. So that means that any kid who can go into preschool, we have serviced, or we have enough room to service, or we are servicing 39% of the population. We have the ability in a year to get that number close to the 90s. So that's a big thing that we're really pushing here, because we know, and I will sit here for hours with anybody and debate it, that the quicker you get students into classrooms, the quicker you can identify needs, weaknesses, et cetera, moving forward. And it just, again, the longitudinal assessment of what students need from year in and year out is very important. And if you don't start until kindergarten, you're already behind, right? So again, we're going to reap this benefit here as a community. We'll see it several years down the road as we start having all this preschool universe as high as we can. And we appreciate the funding that we are receiving, obviously, in order to do this, because we couldn't do this on a straight tax levy. We appreciate the funding, and Belleville and this board has taken an extreme commitment to trying to attract that funding through grants, et cetera, because if we didn't get it, somebody else would, right? So why not us? Why not Belleville, right? We're kind of sick of that whole, it can't happen here. We're done with that, right? We've been done with that for a while, and all of our numbers, all of our successes are starting to show that. So that whole mentality of this community has to change, right? So that's what this budget brings to us. Next slide, Jeff. Here's your enrollments. The bottom is, what's the bottom, Jeff? Okay, that's the October 15th ASSA reports I was talking about. Here are your numbers, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10. Again, you know, we do have school 9 and 10 is seeing some growth there. When I first got here, I think school 9 was just barely at 100, so we're getting a little bigger. You're seeing that as more people are moving into town because better things are happening here. Again, January in Belleville, in the school district, there are a lot of students that come in and there are a lot of students that leave. It's very interesting. We have registration open all year, all day, all year, so we are always taking students. All right, so here's the assumptions. Okay, these are, again, you know, all predictions, and sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. They're usually around the same. There's approximately 115 students to be added, or 2.59% of growth over this year. That's what we're projecting. That's all done through demographers, et cetera. It comes from the state. So this is the projection. So we need to be prepared that 115 new students will be here. Okay, some of these goals you've seen before. The core mission, obviously, is very important: English language arts, math, and science. We know it's going to look a little different coming back, right? Because we do have this now, this online component, right? So we don't know. Maybe we can, you know, entice students over the weekend to log in, or we have teachers doing tutoring hours over the weekends. We don't know. We don't know what's going to be. But I think, unfortunately, a tragedy like COVID, right, forced people to change. It forced districts to get technologies, which we already had. It forced teachers to learn about Google Meets and stuff like that. So now we have that as a tool. Why would we lose it, right? So we think that even though we will be back in person, that's going to be a major part of our foundation. So we have to look at that core mission. District personnel needs and positions, we talked about that because of enrollment trends. Professional development and assistance for teachers, we have to continue to do that. We have a whole, because of the learning loss, there's a big push for response to interventions known as RTI. Teachers are going to be doing a lot of stuff with that. We have maker spaces now. There's a lot of professional development opportunities that are coming out there for this school year, and I know our teachers are really going to be excited about that. More technology initiatives. There's always new technology. We always want to be on the cutting edge of that. We said outdoor facilities and maintain the existing programs in district. We do not want to be a district that cuts things that are already sustainable for our students. Why would I have a student sit down and be very excited about Guitar Club and then cut it? It doesn't make any sense, right? So we want to make sure things are sustainable. It's a very important thing, especially in the lives of students post-COVID, right? We know they missed a lot. They missed a lot of milestones. Certain kids flourished, certain kids didn't. So we're going to have a really interesting year post-COVID. Special education goals, basically some of the same goals that you've seen. budget project for all out-of-district student tuitions. We're bringing in more student tuitions based on Life Skills Home, Willett expansion, the Willett, what's the word? Annex, sorry. The Willett Annex. So we're going to bring in tuitions there. Medical services, physical therapy, we're looking for new providers. We're trying to get some new contracts with some different providers that will probably provide better services. Make sure all the IEPs are taken care of, and continue to enhance the district's resource program. Jeff? We continue with returning students to lesser restrictive environments. That's the most important job of a special education department, right? Have our kids stay home as much as we can. We're continuing to expand the autistic program, especially at the middle school area. We talked about expanding possibly the life skills. We're looking at other properties now connected. We may be able to get a second life skills house, which would really allow us to expand that program. Maintain the extended school year program that we have every year. That's just an incredible program. Self-contained and resource centers at the middle and elementary schools. And again, all the tuition programs that we have, we want to continue to make sure those are occurring. Core mission of technology is to provide instruction and support to every student and every teacher. We've expanded that department because we are consistently growing in that area. We are thinking of putting department members at specific sites next year because we have enough now. So they're already on site in an emergency because that does happen from time to time. Always talking about infrastructure upgrades, continue to enhance those, any type of platforms that we need. And the technology department is actually going to be moving into the board office area so that they can now produce professional developments. They're going to invite parents in. We're talking like a Genius bar kind of there. If you have a problem with your kid's computer, it's right there, sort of like an Apple store. So Mr. Peripato and his team does a great job, but we're going to be a little bit more inviting and a little bit more proactive with some of the professional development, training parents on how to use OnCourse and other platforms, stuff like that. Our facilities goals continue to hit the 5 areas of heat, ventilation, air conditioning, electric, water, fire alarm, and other safety systems, and integrated pest management. Right? Those are the foundation of any district facilities. Maintenance, that's why you call it maintenance. Right? You have to maintain those systems, just like at your house, the same thing. So a lot of money goes into the maintenance of those things. Custodial and supplies materials specific to COVID and other concerns. Preventative maintenance programs, maintain the district vehicle fleet, which has grown a little bit because of our needs and our plowing, et cetera. And all the identified projects that we've been doing to try to expand either the footprint of the district, the programs in the district, or just to compete with other programs that are happening for other kids across the state of New Jersey and across the country that the kids in Belleville definitely deserve. We know that. Yes. Here's our referendum projects for the school year, and it looks like they're going to hopefully start over the summer. Now, this might get a little dicey because we may have some temporary bathroom situations, but you know, this is that whole idea where you just have to get it done, right? So our final project, we're finishing up the elevators now, which is a very exciting time for us here on the board because, as you know, since 1994, we have not been ADA compliant, which we should have been. So now we are finally ADA compliant for those students and parents and teachers who may need some ADA compliance in our building. So that's going to happen, hopefully, as soon as we get the elevators inspected. That'll all be happening. The 3rd floor in School 4, I'm very excited to report that I'm hearing it looks phenomenal. I refuse to go up there until it's completely done because I want to be completely shocked. But that was a floor that when I got here, everybody said was condemned, could never be fixed. But guess what? It's going to have live classrooms up there, and we're going to have a whole group of students up there to save space. We're talking possible air conditioning still, and we brought that up a few years ago. We had a little snag with that. With one of our solar projects, but now we're talking about it again. We're looking at that for all the schools if we can. But the main project left for referendum are schools, the toilet renovations, all the toilets at schools 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So at all those schools after this summer, or a little bit before that, I don't think anybody's ever raised their hand during my presentation, but why don't you wait till I'm finished and then ask a question? Thank you. So all those toilet renovations will be completed. Some of them had areas done already, okay, but now they'll be completely finished at the end. $3,908,000 and $680 in capital reserve, and then we have almost $1 million in maintenance reserve as well. This is to assist with repairs that aren't part of the referendum. As all of you know, the referendum projects were voted on by you, so that money is set aside as debt service and can only go to referendum projects. However, because of expenses, COVID, there were a couple of Trump tariffs, et cetera, that happened when we first started with steel. Some of our projects went over, so we still have to maintain a capital reserve so that this board can deliver that promise to you all when you voted on all of these changes. Now, don't forget, these weren't glamorous changes. These were all end-of-life projects, infrastructure projects, boilers, all these things that a lot of people in the town said we didn't need, but we definitely did, obviously. So we're approving that as we go. Unfortunately, we haven't seen to be honest, we haven't seen the true impact of this yet because our students haven't been in the buildings, right? So we haven't had the heat on. We've only had, limited amount of students here and there. So we're going to see it. We're working on LED projects for all the lights. We're doing everything we possibly can to upgrade everything and save money at the same time. So some of the highlights in the budget: continuation academic program, capital reserve and repairs. 2 new office leases are in, again, continue those in the budget, which again opens up usable space for classrooms, et cetera, libraries, and other school buildings. The new board office lease, which will be on top of Hornblower Preschool, to open up space here so that technology can go in there, and then the business office leaves so that special services can move into the business office so that we can then expand the high school guidance area and really put a career center in there and a college and career center. So all those things have been in the works for 4 or 5 years, and because of all these things that we're able to do with some of the other properties in town, we're able to do that now. We had a STEM initiative. That was the buzzword several years ago. We obviously still have it here. There's STEAM now. I'm not a big buzzword guy, but obviously we want to increase all of that with our academies and also with robotics. So that's in there. And then preschool expansion, we're kind of in phase 2, and we're going to be looking, hopefully with this board, to move to phase 3. Again, really growing that preschool universe, which was, I think, at 7% when I got here. Which was no one's fault, obviously. We didn't have any space. I remember having a conversation with the commissioner, and he basically said to me on the phone, "How come you lost the first 2 rounds of this grant?" And I said, "Commissioner, there is no space in this town to build right now. I can't find anyone that's going to take some of the burden of environmental impact on a lot of the properties." I visited 33 properties and kind of went back and forth negotiating the 33 different properties. We looked at 50 different properties, and almost all of them had issues. And all he said to me was, "Rent office space, get your office out of there, put the kids in your office." It's exactly what he said to me. That's what the Commissioner of Education said to me. Can you believe that? No joke. And we did that. So very proud of that. Could be a short-term goal. I don't know if we can maybe procure some buildings other places, but that's really going to help us move forward. All right, administrative costs. Our district projects to spend $340 less than the regional limit on a per pupil basis, okay? So the limit is $2,419. Our spending is $2,079, $340 less, all right, with all of our projections, et cetera. And that's all calculated by the NJDOE. That's not Mr. Palladino in a corner somewhere making up a number. That comes from the big wigs down in Trenton, who have not been in office all year, by the way. They've all been working from home. So here are our revenue projections. As you can see, the local tax levy that we proposed at first, tuition, miscellaneous revenue, et cetera, all of the aid. Our total operating budget is $80,302,165. Now, I think it's a misnomer, or people play semantics all the time and talk about how the budget's increasing, but we're getting aid money, right? We're getting aid money. People have to start understanding what's happening, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the local tax levy increase was $1,099,000, and a state increase of almost $4 million. We're getting $4 million from the state. So now you could argue and say, well, that's our tax money too. Sure, but it's your tax money going to Belleville. It's not going to Nutley, it's not going to Bloomfield, it's not going to Sparta, it's going to Belleville. That's what we want, right? It's got to go somewhere. Why not go to our kids and our community? So that's important. So these were all the revenue projections, the general tax levies, et cetera, all the things we had. So tax levy went up, like we said, a little bit over $1 million for this year, et cetera. We utilized the bank cap, $250,000 of it, and we brought this to a workshop. We brought this to the board. Okay? We had the increase in state aid. We talked about that already. Next slide. We had appropriations in here, things we were going to appropriate. The fund increase for 21-22 was going to be $2.9 million. Right? All this we worked out. We thought we had a very solid budget. Okay? Which brought us to $80,302,165 based on all those appropriations, which was a few $1 million, like I said, higher than last year, a little bit of an increase, okay? All right. So when doing all that, the initial proposed tax impact when we got here for the workshop, and we put had the first budget approved by the county, was 2.475, which is general fund and debt service together. And it also discusses, it also includes bank cap, because you're probably saying to yourself, how is that allowable? I thought it was only 2%. Well, it's 2% plus certain things that are allowable. Okay? So this board, this administration brought to the board that on an average assessed home in Belleville, we were going to keep it under $100. So we came at $97. That was initially what we did. The board, you know, had to send it to the county for technical review, which is what we did. And then like we do every single year that I've been doing this as an administrator, you work on the budget. The initial thing is just the initial thing. It's got to, all the checks and balances have to go through, all the numbers have to get checked, T's crossed, I's dotted, et cetera. Worked in committees, worked back and forth, worked with the state monitor. Mr. Palladino and I sat down, found a few more grants that we could possibly look at. We would try to look at the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 money possibly that might be coming at us, see what the restrictions are. We did everything we possibly could. We talked about capital fund balances, equalization aid, all these different things to try to heed to what the board wanted, to cut this as much as we could, because we all know that certain things that you do in a year have ripple effects. Okay, so for example, years ago, before everybody was born, years ago, when boards of education used to have budgets get voted on and they would go down, and then those budgets would go to municipalities, mayor and councils, the mayor and council would usually strike a budget, right, and be the heroes, and the Board of Education had to make cuts. That's okay for 1 year, but it has a ripple effect. It has a ripple effect year after year after year, okay? And as boards and municipalities work to be conservative and not spend money, it has a ripple effect from year after year after year. So even though we understand because of COVID, we understand because of everything that was happening, we still have to basically run the ship, or sail the ship, I guess, right? Steer the ship, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. All right, we still have to steer the ship. All right, so we did everything we possibly could, worked in committees, worked with the finance committee, probably one of the best finance committee meetings that Matt and I have ever had, going back and forth with this team, this finance team, and the rest of these board members did a great job knowing all the needs. So we scrubbed all that and came up with $250,000 in cuts that really make us really tight. Okay, and we've said this before here, and certain boards in my past here have cut things and have proven me right, thank God, because I like being right. People like that, but it's detrimental to you all. It's been detrimental to you all. So this is where in a room, Mr. Palladino, myself, listening to the board, talking with Mr. Egan, our state monitor, this is where we feel tonight we can cut conservatively and still be bare bones okay in case of an emergency, because you know in your families there's always an emergency. Well, guess what our family has here? A lot of emergencies, right? So we have to be very careful. So taking $50,000 out of health benefits that that we have to budget for some increases due to different, things that occur in the field of our health benefits. $25,000 out of legal services because we know the Bush Law Group has done such an incredible job to keep us out of trouble that we know that we could cut some of those areas. Where I'm personally a little nervous out of the judgments side. Boards of education are allowed to put monies aside for judgments, right? Just in case they get sued, right? So we put it aside. We took some we already took from that last year. We took from some again this year just to kind of offset some of it. But I get very nervous with that because if we need that $50,000 plus because someone slips and it's not covered by insurance or whatever it is, we have to pull that money from somewhere, right? Just like you all do in your house. Something happens and you guys want to go somewhere, you're not going somewhere, right? You have to cancel a trip, you have to maybe eat a little less that week or whatever it is, right? So it's the same thing here. We also put money back from the capital reserve, $125,000 in, right? So that is a little bit different. It's a little more confusing, but just trust me, it's $255,000 in budget cuts to try to offset that. All right, Jeff. So that brings us here. So this is where we are tonight. This is what this board tonight hopefully will take the recommendation and approve. We're at now 1.91%. Okay, $75 for that $277,000 assessed house. So it's like $6 a month. Over 12 months, if you go to Starbucks, and everybody gets mad when I say this, I don't know how else to tell you though. I mean, if you are on your way to work and you pull over into a Dunkin' Donuts and you get one bagel and a medium coffee, it's more than $6. Okay? So we're asking you to give up a cup of coffee and a bagel, maybe, right? One day a month. Only one day. If you get it every day, then we're not even really having this conversation, are we? Okay? So, I mean, I'm just being serious with you. That's what we have come up with. Obviously, as you're assessed, don't forget, this isn't what you say your house is worth. This is what your house is assessed at. Okay? So you got to kind of figure that out. And if you have any issues, you could all see Mr. Palladino at the end of the night if you want, or call him tomorrow. He could help you with your assessed values, or you can call the town CFO. You could say, hey, Tomko just told me it's going to be this. How much is my house assessed? They'll definitely help you. They're going to love helping you when they hear your phone call. All right? So that's where we're at. On a $500,000 assessed home, so that means your house is worth $1 million almost, I would say, or probably even a little more, or maybe a little less. It's $135. Okay? So we're talking a little bit over $10 a month, right? I think that's a pretty decent thing for all the things that we're doing here. Next slide, Jeff, sorry. My favorite slide, below adequacy spending, right? It's my favorite slide. It really is. It really is. So let's talk about it. So this number came up years ago, and now people combat it with something called equalization aid, right? Governor Murphy came in and said, you know what? We're going to equal out all these districts. We're going to give people equalization aid. Right? So there are districts around here, I'm not going to mention them because I'm sure they're all watching me tonight, they're watching the presentation, right? But there are districts around here who are above adequacy. That means that they spend more than the average district, okay? When I first got here to Belleville, we were in major deficit, and our under adequacy was $19 million. I don't care who wants to argue it. It's very clear, the definition. That means, in a nutshell, this budget needs $19 million in order to be adequate with everyone else that meets the needs of a 5,000 student K-12 district. So we're right there. You can't even say, oh, we don't compare to that formula. We are that formula. We're like really that formula. It's probably based on Belleville, right? They came here, all these mathematicians, and they did this formula, right? I am proud to say that through the aid and all these other things and working really sound fiscal budgets all these years, which included increases, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, we're now only going to be underfunded or under adequacy $9.8 million. Could you imagine that, how excited I am about $9.8 million? Last year was $13 million. So what happens is, in order to equalize this, we get more aid. Everybody gets more aid who's under adequacy. And the promise was that it was supposed to offset your taxes, right? They're going to take state taxes and offset your local taxes. And guess what? It does. It absolutely does. Because if I didn't get that equalization aid, who do you think is going to pay for it? You are, out of the local tax levy. So that $74 will be $150. And we were at $19 million. Do you remember what your tax rate was? It was up there, 150, right? Last year we were at 126. We were at 13 million. So what Governor Murphy is doing, he is helping us with the equalization aid. He's getting a lot of people mad in other parts of the state that aren't getting any money, trust me. But for Belleville, it's helping, and it's showing. It's showing here. The scores are going up. Things are happening. We're getting more kids into schools. We're getting all these programs, right? We opened up because we worked on our facilities, right? We had the best air filtration we could at the time. Places like neighboring Essex County towns, what? They're still barely getting in, right? So it's all showing. So this right here is real. This is a real number. It's a real number. This is not something I just throw out there. Again, I'm proud that we're at 9.8. I can't wait for the day when we're at 4 or 5, okay? I would love for the governor to come here and just say, hey, here's 9.8 million, just put it right in your budget. Oh my God. That would be fantastic. If he's watching now, which I know he does, he's invited anytime. All right, so we're at 9.8 million. Next slide, I think, shows, here it is again. The district has had a difficult time raising money locally. State has not kept in pace, but now the equalization helps out. It's the same definition. It's just they're doing a great job, getting a lot of people mad. It's an election year coming up. I don't know what's going to happen, right? Will we get cut some of this? Maybe, right? Everybody talks about the 1.7 million we got cut. Yeah, we cut some equalization aid. That's all it was, right? Technically, it wasn't ours to begin with. I don't know. We got ourselves in this mess. We did. By keeping the budgets really low, and everybody was all happy. Oh yeah, we don't need to change boilers. We don't need to do this. When I first got here, the first project we had here were those temporary boilers at the middle school and school 8. Was it school 8? I believe it was school 8, right? I think we're still paying for those. I think we just paid that lease off. Is that a waste of money? That's a waste of money, right? So we got to think about those things. Think about all those things. Next one, Jeff. So here it is. This is, I changed the chart a little bit because the other one was getting a little, but here's where you see it, right? When I started here, 14, 15, it was 19 million. We're at 9.8 million, right? This is supposed to be like above, right? We're supposed to be up top. We're not supposed to see this line, right? Unfortunately, we get to see this line. It's down here. But this is for real. That box there, that box is where we need to be. That box still represents the distance between us and a district that I could throw a rock at right now. How's that? That's what that represents. And if you don't think $9.8 million to a district that's half our size really matters, oh, come on, please. And we're doing more with less, and we've been doing it here, and that's a credit to all of us, parents, everyone. But that box is a reality. That box, I named it adequacy. It's what it is. We need that box. Right? It's going to take us some time, but we'll get there. Next one. So here's our adjusted revenue projections. I thought you were holding it back. I'm okay. 80,177, 165, that local tax levy. Give me 1 second. We have some unrestricted federal aid in there for SEMI, which is for special needs students. Mr. Klein does a great job getting that money. I have actually really haven't been anywhere that gets a higher number than he does, so congratulations to him and his team. That's all about record keeping. It really is. Getting kids to a place and keeping records on it. It seems very easy, but most districts have a very low SEMI number. We have a pretty high percentage, so great job. So that comes back in. Even though it's a little piece, every piece helps, right? All right, and the adjusted revenue projections, again, where we're at, 2%. Is the increase capped by the NJDOE. So we're at 1.91. Next one. The adjusted appropriations go to 2819614, and we'll post this tomorrow, or tonight maybe. Maybe Jeff, can you post this tonight? We'll post it tonight so everyone at home can see it as you replay it and listen to my speech again or my presentation again. Here's the adjusted appropriations from the first slide. Again, you got to kind of go back and forth, but we're at 80,177, 165 again for this year, as opposed to last year at 77,357. Next one, Jeff. All right, so here's my famous dollar here. I got to tell you, we're getting a lot better, getting close to the municipality as part of the dollar. When I first got here, it was a lot lower, right? And I want to be very, very clear. The way this dollar is split has absolutely nothing to do with the mayor and council. Nothing. They have zero control over it. They can't call up and say, we'd like to split the dollar differently. It's not how it works. It's just how your budgets align, right? Most districts, if you talk to some of your friends in other towns, they'll tell you that the school spending part's like 60, 70% of the dollar, right? The tax levy. Well, we're getting closer, right? So municipalities at 47.77%, schools at 38.1%, the county's at 12.82%, library, Jeff, is that 9.1? I don't remember. 0.91, thank you. And open space is 0.40, which our town is taking advantage of the open space. Obviously, we see this beautiful field going in, right? So we're taking advantage of that little piece of your dollar, okay? Don't do anything yet. The little piece of your dollar, okay? So that's where we're at on a budget. That's where we are at with this year's budget that's going to be recommended. One second. However, over the past 5 or 6 years I've been doing this, it seems that this presentation, right, becomes sort of like just numbers. And most people go to that last slide, right? Most people go to that last slide like, what's it going to impact me in my pocket, right? What's that tax impact going to be, right? But there are certain people that really love this stuff. And they want to know how this all works out, right? And there's certain people, right, like all of you, that say, how do you develop this? Did you go to school for this? You know, is Matt Palladino really that good? Right? Look at him, he's sitting here. Right? So I always take phone calls, I always do whatever I can. You know, and I teach in several universities, and we teach this to administrators all the time. So I said tonight, why don't we do this? I'm going to teach you very quickly in a few slides how this actually works. So you all know that, number one, there is no padding in this budget, right? There's no padding. You know, back in the day when I was a young administrator, with hair, by the way, that does look just like me, right? Okay, when I had hair, you padded these budgets like crazy. But I keep hearing about padding. In public, it was said, right? So I thought it'd be a great time tonight, because we are in the crux of coming back into reopening, right? And we are in the crux of all these leases and all these things that we keep hearing about, all these things that people are like, oh, there's money hidden and stuff like that, to kind of go over how all this happens and to take an actual line, probably the most important line out there, and dissect it for you, right? Let's do a little audit on it so you could see exactly where it comes from. Now, last month or last meeting, I talked about this particular line. So I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show it to the people at home. I'm going to show you exactly how hard we work to make sure that we're transparent enough so all of you understand this, regardless of what anybody says. What anybody says. This is the truth, right? This is not anything to make fun of or poke fun of or deal with. First slide. So if you go to account, right? If you go to the accounts, if you became a school administrator one day, which hopefully some of you will aspire to be, right? And you became a school administrator, you would see all of these accounts. What do these numbers mean, right? 100, 200, whatever. Well, one account, and I know you can't really see it there, so I kind of exposed it a little bit here. But the account that we actually talked about during the workshop was 11-1XX 100XXX, okay? And that's where you could see it. That's what we gave out last week. I kind of highlighted it. You can't see it. But here it is on the bottom, right? And basically, this is regular instruction, salaries, teacher salaries, etc., right? And there's an increase to that line. And I circled this year's numbers for you, 21, 22. 25,436,576. That was the number, right? Okay. It also shows you the increase, 5.84%. The difference is $1.4 million, right? And you could sit here and you could say, what? How? Just cut it. Just cut it. And I get it. I was there before I did all this, right? I used to battle my father all the time. You guys spend too much money. That's all every day. That's all I would hear, right? And I get it. And if you don't understand it, if you get a guy like me up here and Palladino and we just throw all these numbers at you, it looks like we're trying to throw you off track, right? So this I'm giving today, this is a free lesson in something like this. And we're using an actual account, which is probably the most important account that we have, right? Because it deals with teachers, it deals with instruction, and it deals with a bunch of other things that you wouldn't know about. You just wouldn't know about it because you don't do budgeting, right? All right, so 25,436,576. Next slide. So now try to follow along. I don't mean to trip anybody up, but just try to follow along. I kind of summarized at the end so you see what we're talking about. So here is teaching salaries to K-12 plus the preschool contribution from the general fund. So even though we are getting aid, right? Even though we are getting aid, we still know that we have to fund preschool a little bit. So some of those teachers, aides, et cetera, are coming out of the fund. So there's our kindergarten teachers, $1.2 million. Subs for our kindergarten teachers only, about $5,000. Now, obviously, that's not an absolute number, but I can't predict what's going to happen again. All right, so what you usually do is take your number last year, get a little more conservative on it, maybe you keep it, whatever it is. But if we still have to stay closed or whatever, or teachers have to go out on quarantines, because people don't have to get vaccinated, as you know, we have to cover subs. Just the way it goes. We spent close to $1 million on subs this year, right? $1 million? $1 million on subs. Obviously not expected, right? So we need to make sure that each group has subs, a relative number. Subs get $100 a day. $100 a day. So if someone's out quarantined for 2 weeks, 10 days, think about it, right? It's $1,000. So right now, if we have one kindergarten teacher who has to have a sub for 2 weeks, right? We're already 1/5 down from that fund, okay? Kindergarten extra compensation, different things that they do, different payments, funds, whatever it is, 115 goes into that. The total kindergarten salary is 1.350986. It's right there for you to see, right? It's right there. It's right in that line. That is 13 full-time kindergarten teachers and 13 specials teachers, art, gym, etc., where out of this fund, 28% of your tax levy goes out of this part of the fund. 28%. We fund 28% of their salary comes out of this part of the fund. Okay? That's pretty transparent, right? I'm showing you. Next. Now let's go grades 1 to 5, right? So we have $6.6 million, somewhere give and take in there, right? Subs, $350,000, right? Because there are 73 full-time teachers, right? So obviously, okay? Don't forget, if we have a teacher also that, God forbid, slips, falls, breaks his or her hip, let's just say, out for a long time. First thing the board says, do they have sick days? Sure, but somebody's got to cover them, right? So if you're out for 5 months, there goes your sub fee, okay? All right. Extra comp and salaries, 185, 7.196 million. 73 teachers, 13 specials now, the same 13 we were talking about. So now that's 72% of their salary comes out of this line. Okay? That's where that extra comp salaries comes. And then we have 6 teacher coaches. We have 6 teacher coaches that we created over the last 3 years. And those teacher coaches, Mr. Palladino budgets for 33% out of the 3 different areas of school, right? Elementary, middle, high school. So 33% of this budget covers 6 teacher coaches' salaries. Let me make it even more clear for all of you. This cannot be approved without something called a position control, right? To the state monitor and to the county office. So Belleville has 2 things they have to do. Most people just have to go to the county. Mr. Palladino has to approve through me what they call a position control roster that basically signifies where every penny goes to every position. So you can't have 5 extra teachers. You will see, though, coming up, we do have a few extra teachers coming up here because we budget for that due to enrollment issues, et cetera, if we want to expand the program. But that's all in the budget. And I got to tell you, every year we've used those salaries, right? Because if you get 15 extra kindergarten kids, you have to open a new section, right? You don't have a choice. Okay, next. We're almost there. Here's middle school, right? Middle school, same thing. This middle school includes 1 new teacher. Because I can tell you right now, I need an extra math teacher next year. I know already. 1 extra math teacher. Okay? And I don't know if there's going to be more, but I definitely need 1 math. 6 to 8 teacher salaries, $4.8 million. Subs are $140,000, which I personally had to argue with Mr. Palladino. I think that's very low. However, he won that battle. The extra comp is $75,000. Okay? Salaries are 5.021. That's 62 teachers just at the middle school. 62 teachers are in that line. 6 teacher coaches at 33% we talked about, and that also includes 1 additional teacher that I know we're going to need. Next. And here's the fun one with 9 through 12. Okay, 96 teachers at the high school. 96 teachers, right? 6 teacher coaches again. We put for two hires. We know the ESL population is booming, so we're probably gonna need one of those. And again, we always can possibly need math or whatever, but I'm not sure. But I can't tell the board I might not need an extra teacher and then try to get money somewhere. I gotta cut something, right? So obviously we always project for at least 1 or 2 teachers. This is the smallest amount of teachers I've ever projected for in any budget I've ever had, because we knew it was gonna get tight. We knew it was gonna get tight. And the other thing in here that's very important with the extra comp salaries are 6-period salaries. Some of our teachers teach an extra period because we don't have enough sections for another teacher. We don't have enough money for another teacher. We don't want to pay salaries, whatever it is. Some of those 6 periods are $13,000 to $16,000. It's based on teacher salaries, right? So if we have 4 teachers do that, we're almost at, almost at $100,000 already. So we have 4 6-period salaries in there because we know it's going to happen, especially in the science areas. If I need 1 more chemistry section, I can't hire a full chemistry teacher. It's just not happening. First of all, probably can't find the person. And number 2, it's just way too expensive. So we offer that to our teachers. It's in the contract. It's all been negotiated. And so we utilize it. But it's budgeted for. So that's 9.116973. All right, Jeff. So here are some of the extra things that are in that line that people don't understand. You just take the teachers, do the salaries, figure it out. Oh, look at all these extra things. Well, here they are. The paraprofessionals, $438,000 a year. These men and women do a phenomenal job, and we need them by IEPs, et cetera. Okay? That's how much that costs. That goes into that salary line, right? Home instruction salaries. When students have to go on home instruction because they're suspended for more than 3 days, or they have an illness at home, and we do have some students have chronic illnesses, cancers, et cetera, they can't come to school, okay? Next year, COVID, I'm sure, we have to pay instructors to go out. Nobody does anything for free. Do you do things for free? Who does things for free? People should be compensated for their time. This is where it goes in the budget. $250, which is usually the number we use. I still think that's a little low, but again, we're being conservative. But just remember that number, because I may have to go back to the board and say I need another $50,000 because we had to keep conservative there. Preschool special ed staff salaries, which comes, Mr. Paladino could explain that a little more later. $604,740 comes back into the budget to offset that, because we need that as part of that's part of the PEA application or the funding that the board has to have a portion of the rest of that $5 million. Purchase services, which are different things that happen throughout the district, whether it's part for copiers, et cetera, whatever it is, $81,700. Supplies throughout all the schools, $1 million, which comes out to again, the same number that we've been doing, but I really don't know if that's going to have to go up now, because I don't know if we're going to have to give more supplies out because of sharing things now and stuff. I could tell you right now, elementary, I'm sure every kid's going to need their own crayons and stuff like that. Do we put that on the burden on the taxpayer? We try not to do that, right? We try to assume that cost. So again, we kept that kind of steady. And textbooks that have to be purchased every year, replaced, it comes out to like $35,000 a site, which is very minimal. All right? We try to do as many e-texts as possible. We're trying to do licenses. But again, we have to be very careful now, because a lot of these companies are getting smart with COVID, right? They're taking advantage. We just had it just happen to us about 2 hours ago. We almost had a company give us something for free. We didn't even know what it was. They just want to give you something for free, get in the door, and that's it. So again, that's it. So those total numbers right there, 2.7 million, et cetera. All right? So this is what we do. We sit down, we see what we need, we come up with numbers. We use last year's numbers, we see if we have new programs, et cetera. But basically, it's all the same. All right. Remember this number? Right? Remember that number from the beginning? 25 million? Okay? Total kindergarten salaries, grades 1 to 5, 6 to 8, 9 to 12, miscellaneous. It's exactly that number. That's what it comes down to. I don't know, there's nothing missing, right? It's not that difficult to put stuff in. What becomes difficult is when you have emergencies, right? What becomes difficult is if I have 5 teachers in 5th grade, God forbid, get sick at the same time. right? Or two people, we have maternity leaves, two people leave, we hire a new person, and then 2 weeks before school, they decide that they don't want to work anymore, they're going to work with their father somewhere, blah, 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 I don't want to be a teacher anymore, we have to find a new teacher, who's going to pay for those subs? Those are the things that happen. Those are the reasons why sometimes we have to transfer money into and out of lines. But when it's set, and when this board votes on it, in any district, it's established. It's there. Again, this isn't old school where there's money floating around anymore. There's too many checks and balances. I'll admit that years ago, before I was anything close to central administration, there were things that BAs and individual superintendents could possibly do to pad areas, as people call it. And yeah, and you know, people like the governor and some of our senators and stuff always remember those days, but they're not there anymore, especially with a state monitor. It's not happening. So that's a small piece of how we budget. Now imagine doing that for all 2,000 lines, right? That's how you put a budget together. It takes a little bit of time, a couple days, not too long, all right? But again, we sit up here all the time, we talk about it, we do it. That's basically it. I took the most difficult line for you, and if you could understand that a little bit more and how much work gets put into this and how much we do, then I think it's worth the extra 5 minutes, right? Go ahead, Jeff. So I want to thank you for listening to me.